into the darkest corners of real-life mysteries. From unsolved murders to shocking criminal conspiracies, we explore the stories that shook the world. Each episode, we take you step by step through the investigation, uncovering the truth behind the headlines and the secrets that still remain hidden. If you're a fan of crime stories, stay tuned and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Get ready because we're about to uncover a story that will keep you on the edge of your seat.
The Vanishing of Elizabeth Sullivan. Part 1. The Disappearance. It was a crisp autumn afternoon in 1994 when Elizabeth Sullivan, a bright 24-year-old graduate from a prestigious law school, disappeared without a trace. Elizabeth was last seen leaving her apartment in Chicago, just a block away from her work. She had plans to meet her best friend for lunch, a meeting that never happened. Her cell phone rang unanswered. Her car remained parked outside her apartment. And the trail went cold within hours. But it was the peculiar details of her case that soon caught the public's attention. Elizabeth had no known enemies. She was well liked by her colleagues, had a close-knit family, and was on the verge of starting a promising career in law. Her apartment, when searched, revealed nothing out of the ordinary, no signs of a struggle, no forced entry, just an unmade bed and a half-finished cup of coffee. The only thing missing was Elizabeth herself. The police investigation, the first clue. Detectives were quick to trace her last known movements, and what they discovered was both intriguing and chilling. Elizabeth had left her apartment at 11:45 a.m. but the last time she used her phone was at 11:38 a.m., sending a message to her friend, "I'll be there in 10 minutes, don't worry." But then the silence. No response. No follow-up. At first, the disappearance was treated like any other missing persons case. The police asked friends and family if they had noticed anything strange in the days leading up to her disappearance. But nothing seemed out of place. That was, until they discovered Elizabeth's bank records. On the day of her disappearance, at 1 p.m., someone had accessed her account from an ATM 3 miles away from her apartment. A withdrawal of $500. The strange thing? Elizabeth had never withdrawn that amount before. But even stranger, the person who withdrew the money was never identified. No fingerprints. No camera footage. It was as if Elizabeth had vanished into thin air. The suspects, a web of mystery. As weeks turned into months, the investigation began to shift. Police started looking into the people closest to Elizabeth. Her boyfriend, Paul Jacobs, a charming but secretive man, became a person of interest. Her former law professor, Dr. Mark Kavanaugh, had a strange history of making inappropriate advances toward students. A mysterious stranger seen leaving her apartment building around the time of her disappearance, his identity remained unknown. And then, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A disgruntled ex-colleague of Elizabeth's, who had been fired from her previous job at a law firm, claimed to have seen someone who looked like her getting into a car on the night she disappeared. The car, he said, had been parked just outside Elizabeth's apartment. But by the time the police tracked down the lead, it had gone cold. The unsolved puzzle. Nearly 3 decades later, Elizabeth Sullivan's case remains unsolved. There have been no body found, no more ATM withdrawals from her account, and no conclusive leads that could explain her sudden disappearance. Every year, her family holds a vigil. Every year, the police continue their investigation. And every year, Elizabeth's story is shared, in the hope that someone, somewhere, might know something. But there are still more questions than answers. Where is Elizabeth Sullivan? Was she taken by someone she knew? Or was she a victim of a random act? Part 2. The Shocking Revelation. Months had passed since Elizabeth Sullivan disappeared without a trace, and the investigation had gone cold. The police were grasping at straws, unsure of where to look next. Her family, devastated, had all but given up hope of ever seeing her again. But just as the case seemed to be slipping into the archives of unsolved mysteries, new evidence emerged, evidence that would change everything. The mysterious phone call. It all started with a phone call. Detective Sarah Finch, now leading the investigation into Elizabeth's case, received a tip from an anonymous caller. The voice was distorted, as though the person was intentionally hiding their identity. But the message was clear. "I know where she is. But you won't find her in Chicago. If you really want to know, look where she didn't want you to." The cryptic nature of the message left Detective Finch with more questions than answers. However, it was the second part of the call that caught her attention. It's not just one person. It's a network. She wasn't taken because of her looks or her career. She was taken because she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Could this be the breakthrough they needed? Finch couldn't shake the feeling that the case was tied to something much darker than a simple disappearance. She decided to follow the strange lead, which pointed to a rundown hotel on the outskirts of Chicago. A place that, at first glance, seemed utterly unrelated to Elizabeth's life. The hotel, a hidden connection. The hotel, the Ivy Lane, was located on the edge of the city's industrial district. It had a reputation for being a haven for shady dealings. The kind of place where people came to disappear, or worse, where they were hidden from the world. It wasn't the sort of place someone like Elizabeth would have ever been seen. But Detective Finch's instincts told her that this was no coincidence. She started digging into the hotel's history, and soon discovered something shocking: Elizabeth had been there. Not on the day of her disappearance, but months before. Records showed that Elizabeth had checked in briefly under a different name, Sophia Larson, 3 months prior to her vanishing. She had only stayed for a single night, but the hotel's security footage confirmed her presence. It also revealed that, on that night, she had been seen talking to someone, a man, tall and mysterious, with a heavy coat and sunglasses, even though it was an unusually warm evening. The man never checked into the hotel himself. In fact, there was no record of him anywhere, no name, no credit card information, and no indication of who he was. The only clue was a lone car parked outside the hotel that night. It had a distinctive, custom license plate. The underworld connection. As Detective Finch connected the dots, a chilling realization took hold. The man Elizabeth had spoken with was tied to one of Chicago's most notorious underground syndicates, a criminal organization involved in human trafficking, money laundering, and illegal gambling. The more Finch uncovered, the clearer it became that Elizabeth's disappearance was not a random act. She had been targeted. It was no longer just about a law student disappearing. It was about something much darker. Elizabeth, with her legal expertise and sharp mind, had somehow gotten too close to something she shouldn't have known. The breakthrough. Detective Finch had a breakthrough when she traced the car from the hotel's footage to a warehouse just outside the city. This warehouse was known to have been used for illegal activities by the same criminal syndicate. Armed with this new information, the police raided the location. What they found was shocking. The warehouse was empty. But inside, there were handwritten notes, legal files, and even a computer hard drive containing encrypted files that seemed to have been deleted recently. Among the files was a single name, Elizabeth Sullivan. It seemed Elizabeth had been working on something much larger than anyone had realized. Something that might have cost her life. The shocking revelation. The discovery of the warehouse opened a new door, one that would lead to deeper, more dangerous connections. The question now was Elizabeth still alive? And, more importantly, could they find her before it was too late? As the police delved deeper into the syndicate's operations, they uncovered an intricate web of corruption stretching from Chicago to international borders. Could Elizabeth's disappearance be part of a larger conspiracy? The investigation was far from over. And with every new revelation, the danger grew closer. Part 3, the final hunt. The clock was ticking. Every minute that passed brought Detective Sarah Finch closer to a terrifying reality. Elizabeth Sullivan, the young law student who had disappeared almost 3 decades ago, was not just a random victim. She was part of a larger scheme, one that reached deep into the criminal underworld of Chicago and beyond. And now, Finch was racing against time to uncover the final pieces of the puzzle. A dangerous game? The more Finch dug, the more she realized how deeply Elizabeth had been embedded within this criminal web. She had unknowingly stepped into a case of corruption, where the boundaries between law and crime blurred. Elizabeth's last known contact, that mysterious man seen at the Ivy Lane Hotel, had been connected to a network of corrupt officials and businessmen. But that wasn't all. As Finch continued her investigation into the encrypted files found at the warehouse, a new revelation shook her to her core. One of the files was labeled Sullivan Report. It was a legal document that detailed the shady deals of a powerful real estate mogul, a man whose name had never been linked to Elizabeth before. This mogul, Richard Novak, had been involved in multiple questionable transactions across Chicago. What Elizabeth had discovered was an elaborate money laundering scheme that used real estate as a front for international criminal activities. But there was more. At the bottom of the report, Elizabeth had written a note: "I'm going to the authorities tomorrow. They have to know about this." It became clear. Elizabeth had uncovered something dangerous, so dangerous that she had been silenced to prevent her from exposing it. The final lead. Finch knew the stakes had just changed. This was no longer just about finding a missing woman. It was about stopping a criminal empire before more lives were lost. Her next move was to track down Richard Novak. But Novak was no easy target. He was a ghost, never seen, always protected, and with a network of loyal followers who would do anything to keep him hidden. But Finch had a break when one of Novak's former associates, now in witness protection, came forward with information. The witness, Elliot Moore, had been an enforcer for Novak's operations. He'd left the criminal world years ago, but still carried the weight of his past. Moore revealed that Novak had an exclusive property on the outskirts of Chicago, a sprawling estate that had been under surveillance by the FBI for years. The estate was rumored to be a meeting place for some of the most dangerous people in the world. It was time to act. The final confrontation. Finch, alongside a tactical team, raided Novak's estate late one evening. The place was a fortress, with armed guards and high-tech security systems. But Finch had something the criminals didn't: inside knowledge. Inside the mansion, they found sophisticated communication devices, large amounts of cash, and more documents that tied Novak to a series of crimes far worse than anyone had realized. But it was what they found in the basement that turned the tide. A hidden room, concealed behind a false wall. Inside, sitting in a chair, was a woman, Elizabeth Sullivan. The truth revealed. Elizabeth was alive, but barely. She was weak, malnourished, and disoriented. The months of captivity had taken their toll. But as Detective Finch rushed to her side, Elizabeth's eyes flickered with recognition. "I knew you'd come," Elizabeth whispered, her voice hoarse. The truth poured out in fragments. Elizabeth had been taken not because of her career or her legal skills, but because she had stumbled upon Novak's secret dealings. When she discovered the depths of his operations, Elizabeth had planned to go to the police. But Novak had learned of her intentions and had her kidnapped before she could act. Her disappearance had been a calculated move. They kept her alive to prevent her from revealing the truth, and when they thought she was about to crack, they moved her to the mansion, hidden, forgotten, and silenced. But Elizabeth had never given up. She had been working secretly, gathering information for months, waiting for the right moment to escape. And now, it was over. The aftermath. With Elizabeth's testimony, Novak and his entire operation were dismantled. He was arrested and charged with multiple crimes, including money laundering, human trafficking, and conspiracy to commit murder. As for Elizabeth Sullivan, she was hailed as a hero. Though she had endured unimaginable trauma, she emerged from the darkness, stronger than ever. Her bravery had exposed one of the largest criminal syndicates in the city's history. The vanishing of Elizabeth Sullivan was no longer a mystery. It was a story of survival, of the relentless pursuit of truth, and of the brave few who fight back against the shadows.
If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more thrilling mysteries like this one, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Your likes and shares help us grow and bring even more gripping tales to life. Thanks for listening.